Hi everybody, I'm Dan Reus, founder and chief instigator of Openly Disruptive. This is video 2 in a series of how to really build out your vision so that you can go from a vision for innovation or a vision for your ecosystem into actually actionable components of it so that you can iteratively improve it. The first video, and I'll put the link in the comments, was all about finding the product market fit in your vision. And if you recall, we used the example of Starbucks and how Howard Schultz might have thought about early growth, what was succeeding in his store number 1 and how he could think about scaling that. In this video, we're going to think about how to, we're going to dive into some ways to use that initial vision as a framework for a growth platform for you to use to build on. So if you recall from that first video, and if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, I would encourage you to go ahead and pause and do that, is he was using this basic vision with the moving pieces in it to have a lot of conversations with a lot of people to improve it, because it really became a diagnostic tool then that he could use to get feedback and rapidly improve it. So if you recall, we talked about for Howard, and after he had store number 1, his Pike Place Market, he realized that for the coffee drinking mass market, the people that he was getting in the store, not the coffee snobs, but the coffee drinking mass market, and his investors, that he was bringing something together. And actually what he was thinking about is, how do we deploy capital from the investors to serve the coffee drinking mass market? And then how do we then return that back in terms in proceeds to pay back the investors so that we could scale it? And then what we dove into was the fence that he could build, or the things that he could uniquely predict, where he really understood this third place you really want to be. I've abbreviated that as 3PYRBWB, and this consistent coffee experience. So he understood this Pike Place Market and the music and the sound and the sensory experience and the sense of occasion there, so that people really wanted to hang out there. And he could also really understood that, he understood how to deal with coffee bean roasting, how to deal with water, and how to deal with all these things that makes inconsistent coffee be something much more consistent. So that's the fence that he could build. And the job to be done that all this boiled down to was this first global coffee brand, the idea that he could bring these things together. So for the coffee drinking mass market and his investors, he was going to deploy this third place you really want to be and a consistent coffee experience to build the first global coffee brand. And then he would be able to use this to say, hey, real estate developer, I would like to talk to you. Can we have an hour to have a meeting to talk about how we could put a Starbucks in every one of your developments going forward? Can I have an hour of your time? And if the person said, well, what are you going to talk about? He could say, well, because I'm bringing for the coffee drinking mass market and my investors, I'm bringing a third place you really want to be and a consistent coffee experience to create the first global coffee brand. You could do that with other investors, with people that might be key employees, with suppliers, with regulators, if he was dealing with zoning issues or whatever. And so the idea is for him to go out and be able to have hundreds of conversations. So this was really helpful, but you see it's exercise number 1. So how can you build on this? Well, what if we wanted to say, as he was having all those conversations, let's move on to exercise 2, and we might say, now we want to really understand the moving pieces, and we want to start capturing what we're hearing from people. So once again, for the coffee drinking mass market, this is just putting up here to remind us what we're talking about, and Howard's investors, we're going to bring this third place you really want to be, and a consistent coffee experience to create the first global coffee brand. And so what he might be able to do is, as he's having those conversations, to ask people. And so the real estate developer might be like, well, so what do you think, when you say that you could create the first global coffee brand, you might be able to, he might say, what do you mean by that? And over and over again, he could say, well, nobody's ever really thought about a company that could get from, grow a coffee shop chain, but maybe I'm thinking of, we could be in hundreds of stores to maybe even thousands of stores. And that would be something really significant. And he could notice that his investors that he was talking to and the real estate developers and the suppliers and everything, they would be like, that's really powerful. He might also say, we also would know that success was really taking off when people copycat us, when people try to copy us, because that means that other people are recognizing that we're finding success. And he might say, we're going to start seeing some ROI. So we're actually going to see some same store metrics, or some number of times people return, or those kinds of things would tell us that we're starting to succeed. And then we could go back and say, okay, so now if we start to understand that's what big success looks like, and do you agree with those things? He's like, yeah, that really agrees. Then you could say, so where are we at right now? Well, we're at one store. We don't have any copycats, but we have fans. We have people that keep returning. Even when they're not in the neighborhood, even when they're from out of town or whatever, they come back. That's really important. I want to say we're cash flow positive, or maybe a better way to describe it is that we've got a gross margin that tells us that that there's dollars here to scale. Those are really important things. And so then from that, he could then start saying, well, what are the opportunities we're seeing? So we met this real estate developer, or we've met people in urban renewal, and they're fans of what we're doing. So we're starting to meet these people that are fans. He could say some of these metrics are, we know that we need to maximize how long people stay, and their ticket size. So how much do they spend while they're there? So if they dwell for 3 hours, how long are they staying? Maybe he says we want to know from Wi-Fi usage in the store how engaged people are, or what they're doing in the store. There's all kinds of ways that he could start measuring success. Number of yeses to meetings. And I apologize, my handwriting is atrocious. That's okay. And he could start looking at what are the obstacles. So the obstacles might be zoning issues, or it might be the supply chain, or it might be training. For this consistent coffee experience, it requires a level of training that maybe the average coffee shop hasn't done. But what he's able to do then is he's able to actually build a roadmap and to start understanding the moving pieces so that he could build something out of it and continue. Like, he's still running a store, and he has to just keep finding this out. But this is a way to keep getting to clarity, using each one of these conversations to get to clarity. So why do you want to get that clarity? Well, because the next thing we want to do is we want to think of, how do we go big? So right now, he's at one store. And eventually he wants to be, this first global coffee brand. And, we see we've just got these pictograms of people here, but this model here allows us to really think about what's the growth platform, because what we're going to see is these are all eras of the store or of Starbucks, or eras of what you're working on. And what we can start doing is say, so maybe we think that there's the 1-store era, but then there's going to really be the 5-store eras. But we're eventually going to get that to, that's going to be the 100-store era. And then eventually that's going to be the hundreds of stores. And that's going to eventually be, we think, thousands of stores, which was just crazy to think about when they got started. So the advantage of this, and the reason that we do this is really, you remember, we're talking about for the coffee drinking mass market, Howard is going to bring together them and his investors with this third place you really want to be, and this consistent coffee experience to create the first global coffee brand. So once we've done this, then we can start looking at to say, what is it that we let go of? So we can't be everything to everybody. But when we let go of what is the thing that allowed us to do that? And what we're going to be able to do is we're going to start building out what is the understanding. So in the first case, he might say, well, we had our first store in Pike Place Market, but after that, to get to 5 stores, and I don't actually know the history of Starbucks, but he might have said, we're going to let go of Pike Place Market and think about the suburbs of Seattle. Or it might be that we're going to think outside Seattle. We're going to look for places like Pike Place Market in other markets where we've got tourists, but we've also got locals and what that looks like. But we can think about what he lets go of and what they're building, what it has to do. Because to get from 1 store to 5 stores, he's going to have to say, what's this third place you really want to be? Well, it can't be Pike Place Market, but we can understand what is unique in the other places they go. And it might be tourist locations, or it might be locations with a particular amount of traffic, whatever that is. But it'll help him define that. It'll help him define what is a consistent coffee experience in all of those places. And he'll know that, okay, so then but when we go from 5 stores to 100 stores, we're going to have to let go of our small boutique coffee supplier. And they're going to either have to be able to scale with us, or we're going to have to look at more. We're going to have to let go of that. We're going to be able to see it. So he's going to actually be able to build out all of the things that are limiting beliefs that are going to keep him from getting to that. The advantage of this, and I think this is really important, is when he builds this out, what we're able to do is we'll go to the next exercise that you're going to see in the next video, and we'll actually be able to see what is the level up engine. What is the engine that every turn of the flywheel is going to get us from 1 store to 5 stores, and from 5 stores to 100 stores, and from 100 stores to hundreds of stores. And we'll actually start talking about what is the thing that helps you do that. So this is how I think about building ecosystems. Now, you can use this as an individual innovator. Maybe you're just thinking about all of the partnerships you're going to build, or how many customers you're going to have, or whatever. Or you can be thinking about how many stakeholders in the ecosystem you're going to bring together. Regardless, this is the kind of work I do. If I can help you in any way, build out what you're trying to build, I'd love to hear from you. I'm Dan at openlydisruptive.com. This has been all about getting from your vision to thinking about it as a growth platform. How do you have all of the conversations and engage all of the people so you can build a growth platform? Go back to video 1. The link will be in the comments. In the description, if you'd like to see that fuller description of that, and look ahead for video 3 to see how you can actually build. Define and refine your level up engine for the ecosystem that you're trying to build. So here's hoping that I can help you innovate. Take care and have an awesome day.